Hi, everybody. Thank you all very much for joining this morning. We wanted to start offering more of a kind of getting started with Podio, really high level, but just explaining sort of the infrastructure of the tool, giving you some guidance on how to walk through either certain features or how to get certain things set up, and to go over all of our terminology so that as you are either starting out with a brand new account or maybe you're a new user to an existing account, this can get you a little bit more acclimated and just help this all feel very familiar for you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you've ever been on one of my webinars before, I always like to start with a quick little just welcome to Podio. So Podio as a whole, when it comes down to the infrastructure, is really made up of these two major components that we refer to as workspaces and apps. So I like to think of it almost like the Russian stacking dolls of each side, each layer of Podio is another layer of Podio. So you have your account is that largest doll. The next one underneath that is going to be your workspaces. So this is how you're able to organize and bucket all your information together. These are all listed in this drop down on the left-hand side. You might have everything in one workspace. You could have multiple workspaces for either different clients, different departments, different projects. A lot of it does come down to a personal preference. The big thing to just keep in mind with those workspaces is when you're creating one, which we will on this call, you have the ability to make it either public or private. If you're selecting it as private, people can only access the workspaces they've been specifically invited into. So it does allow you to have a little bit more of that permission control. The other main part of Podio, and this is what makes up each one of those workspaces, are what we call apps. And that's going to be basically your template. So that's where the actual data of what you're working on is going to live. So when you come into a workspace, you always have this add app button. You can go ahead and select that, and you get two different options. So you can either create your own template, which we will be doing momentarily. I'm going to show you how easy that can be to set up to really be very specific for your business or for your needs. Or we do have this app market. So don't be fooled by the name. This is not a marketplace. Everything in here is included with your subscription model. But these are just preset templates that either we've created or one of our partners has created and we've approved of that you're able to go ahead and download into your own workspaces. With these, though they're already preset, you do have the ability to customize those. So if you see one that's close to what you like, maybe we just want to get started with a basic projects one or a basic clients app, you can still make modifications to those. So you can pull that in and maybe change up some of the terms. We have them all organized by both function and industry, so really easy to find things that might apply for you. And we do have both single apps if you wanted to do sort of one-offs, or what we call app packs, which is basically just a group of apps that we think work together. Maybe they have a few connections built in throughout the template itself, where you can just go ahead and get all of them at once. If you're ever curious about what's in an app or what's in an app pack, you can always go to that more info button here. That gives you kind of a full little write-up, and especially with the packs, can include screenshots and let you know what is actually coming with that pack. So just a nice way to be able to play around. If you are pulling anything from the app market, and let's say it's not necessarily what you want to go with, you always have the ability to remove that app from your workspace as well. This is just great if you maybe not really sure what sort of fields you want in a template, really would like to have some guidance and want to kind of start less from a blank slate. You can always go into this app market. What I will do today is we're going to create our own. So first I'm going to show how to create a workspace, and then we can go ahead and create apps in that workspace. So when you're in your little drop down, you can go to create a workspace here. We can go ahead and name that workspace. So I'll just name this one webinar. Again, I can make that either open or private. Personally, I recommend keeping them all private so you can pick and choose who's going to have access to it. But let's say it's something where it's maybe a workspace where you're keeping training material. You might want to have that just fully open. That would just mean that anyone who's a member of your account has access to that space. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that one private. We'll create. And it's as simple as that. It's going to automatically create that workspace for us here. That first box that's going to pop out is where I can choose to invite my users into this space. So it allows me to kind of pick and choose who I want to be able to access and work within this workspace. And I'm able to change their role type. So we have a workspace admin. That's especially if you want someone to be able to really be creating templates, changing templates, doing anything with automation. You'd want to make sure that they're a workspace admin. A regular member, which is what most of your employees might be. And then a light member has the ability to maybe make edits to items, but it can't necessarily do things like modify a template or delete an item that they didn't create. When we're looking at this space here, we have this nice workspace dashboard. So you can see I have that add tile here. This is where you can really customize that to look however you may choose. The defaults are going to be sort of a little tab for any tasks I might have in this workspace, any calendar dates I might have, but you do have the ability to add quite a bit here. So I can add things like hyperlinks if there's links that I want to make accessible easily, images, which is great for branding, any sort of text instructions. I can add contacts. And then one thing I find very helpful is be able to add reports. So if you have any sort of data in here that you'd like to have a quick snapshot report on, you can go ahead and save that to that workspace dashboard. And then on the left-hand side here, each of your workspaces does going to have that running activity feed. So it'll show you all the things that have occurred within this workspace, who's made those changes, and what those were. This is also great to kind of get away from reply all email. So let's say I wanted to get a message out to my entire team. I can go ahead and type that here. I can even pose a question to get sort of a poll, attach a hyperlink or a file, and I can go ahead and share that anyone in that workspace is going to get notified of that status update. Okay, that sort of workspaces as a whole. As I had mentioned, right now we're going to go ahead and create our first app. So in this example, I'm going to just take something kind of generic. So we can go ahead and do something like a basic projects app. You could also do something like a client ticket. Not to quote Mean Girls, but it's almost like the limit does not exist. You can include as many different things as you want. What I'm entering in here is the name of my app, and then where you see item name, that's going to be what each individual saved piece of data in this app is referred to. So if I have a client's app, each item name would be client. If I have a ticketing app, each item name would be ticket, so on and so forth. For your app type, these are the different sort of like built-in layout structures that you can choose. I would say 9 times out of 10, you're likely going to be in that standard template action, but you do also have the ability for events, which is going to be a little bit more of, adding attendees if it's any sort of a meeting or a function, or a contact, which is if you're using it more as like an internal almost address book. So it's going to just pull those fields in that structure of how you'd want that to feel for that particular app type. You're always able to select your icon. This can get fun. Got to make it where it's a little bit more standout when you're moving quickly. Your layout options. So you have a badge view, which is almost like a Kanban view. So you're able to pick which fields you'd want to display in that badge, especially if you're more of a visual person with work. This is a great option to go. I've seen this been really successful, especially in fields like real estate, where if you have an image of a property, you might want that displayed in that quick view. Table view tends to be my personal preference, especially the new table view, which I'll go into that once we get into the app itself. This is a little bit more of like sort of grid, almost spreadsheet-like view. So especially if you're coming from something similar to Excel, it makes it a lot easier to adapt into a new platform. Card view is going to be where you have similar to the badge, but smaller, where I can basically drag a card from status to status or from category to category and have that again in that sort of visual view. The activity view is going to be very similar to that activity feed on the workspace homepage. So it's going to show you each app as that activity. And then a calendar view, pretty self-explanatory. Any dates that you're selecting, whether it be a due date or a contact date, can pop up in that calendar view of the app itself. So I'll start here with that table view. I can add any sort of descriptions or instructions for this particular app. And then in these advanced settings, this is where you can kind of get into the super nitty gritty. A lot of times we get asked questions about unique identifiers. So if you have any sort of like a rolling ticketing system with numbers in place, we can go ahead and make that set here. I can even add a prefix or have it starting at a certain number. I can say I don't want comments on this item. I don't want things to be edited. Or one thing that we see often is I do not want them to like the edits to post in that stream, just because if you have a lot of things going, that can get a little cluttered. But everything looks good here. So we'll go ahead and create that app. And as you're seeing here, we are kind of starting with that blank slate, but this really does allow you to make this however you'd want it to look. So the different field options you have are all listed on this left-hand side. So we have our text field, which is basically just going to be where I can, type in any answer. So I'm going to say project name. You have your category field. So this is going to be where you have multiple options that can be selected. So whether it's project type, project status, even person it might be assigned to. If you have it in that sort of setup, you can use that category. So for this, I'll just say type of project. And you can see I'm double clicking into that to be able to rename that from category to whatever I'd like that to say. And I'm just going to do a quick little letter breakdown there. So I have my options. You can have those say whatever you need to. These can also be color coded. And in these little carrots on the left-hand side, you'll notice these on all the fields I draw down. That's going to give you multiple options that you can apply to that particular field type. So if I wanted to make it a multiple choice, I would click that caret and select that. I personally like an inline, but if you did want to change it to a list view or a drop-down view, you can do that as well. You can add help text if you want to give any guidance. I can require it, I can hide it if it's empty, or I can keep it always hidden if it's something I just want to be able to report on, but I don't necessarily want visible. And again, to color code those, you just hit that little drop down. can go ahead and just make this a little prettier. Great, and especially helpful for all those visual workers up there. Okay. Other fields such as date fields. So I can say this, project timeline. Similarly with that date field, with that drop down, this is going to be really helpful. If you need just a static date, I just want to see, let's say, for instance, a deadline or a first contact date. When you hit that little caret, I'm able to hide the end date and hide the time. So that way it's not giving me a full range, it's just giving me that one static date. If you want either of those, you can keep them included. For this example, I'm going to keep the range, so I'm going to hide the time because I don't necessarily need time for a project time frame. Okay. Relationship field, we'll get to this one momentarily. I'm going to circle back to that once we get through this. Member is going to be where you can assign any of your internal contacts, so any of your employees, to the specific item. So I'm going to say this is going to be the project owner. Great. Fairly self-explanatory. Phone number and email. I'm going to pull that in right now. Number is going to be any sort of number that you're tracking. A lot of times we'll see, number of square feet. If we're talking about, again, properties, it might be number of bedroom, number of bathroom, amount of units that are needed for something. So that's going to be that number field. That link field is going to be more of that hyperlink. So if I needed to attach a hyperlink, whether it be to something that's correlating in a different app, or if it's maybe the company's website, I can do that here. Image is going to be pulling from any image that you may have saved. So if you're using this on the desktop, that can be anything saved to your computer. If you're using this from your phone, it can be anything from your camera roll, because we do have that full mobile app for Podio as well. Money is great for doing things like tracking budget and expenses. So I can go ahead and just say total budget here. Progress, nice little progress bar. This can be either manually moved, if you feel like you're X amount percentage of the way done with any sort of task, or that can be automatically updated, which we will cover in our 201 webinar, which will be early next month. I believe that's April 10th, if anyone's interested in attending that one as well. Calculations are great if we wanted to do any sort of, hours times money equals total billable rate. So that's where you'd be able to pull that in. This is using, sometimes very, very light references. So I'd be able to just mention the field that I want it to pull from, and then whatever sort of basic math I'd want to put in here. For anyone who is a little bit more advanced or wants to get more complicated with those calculations, you can also use JavaScript in here to get some pretty powerful stuff through. Location is great. So this is going to be basically almost like a GPS. So you can type in an address and actually get that map view of that location. If you're doing anything offsite, this can be incredibly helpful, especially with that mobile app. You can go ahead and pull up that item, click on that location, and send it right to your phone and get driving directions. And then duration is if we wanted to measure any sort of amount of time that might be spent on this. So I have that time frame up here. Maybe I want to say total hours. Similar with the other drop-down options here, if I go to that little caret, I can say maybe I just want the hours. I don't necessarily need the minutes or the seconds. I can uncheck those. If I just want days, I can do that as well. And I know I mentioned I was coming back to relationship fields. I'm going to finish creating this app first, and we can come back in here. Relationship fields are incredibly helpful and incredibly powerful. This is where you're going to be linking two different apps, whether it's in the same workspace or different workspaces, to each other so that they can kind of reflect back on each other. So it's great if you're doing anything where you're managing a ticket or a project for a client. You may have a client's app and a project's app and be able to link that client directly to that project. This allows you to stay more organized and allows you to see anything that you've related to that client previously. Since we only have this first app in this workspace, we're not going to have anything to relate it to. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this one up. We can pull in an app pack and show those relationship fields there. So that I can go ahead and save. Great. So one of the wonderful things with Podio is the fact that once you have that template saved, whenever you hit add new, you're getting a blank version of that template. So it's not like you have to recreate that every single time. It also makes sure that the consistency of work is going to stay level across the board. You're always going to have the same fields that are being filled out. If you ever need to make any adjustments, you can go ahead and hit that little wrench and you can modify that template. So whether that's changing a category, adding or removing a field, adding some additional requirements, you can go ahead and just modify that template here. App settings and layout options, especially when we're talking about those references, layout options are very helpful. App settings is kind of where we were when we originally created this app. Developer is going to be, again, more on the advanced end. So if you're doing anything with webhooks or wanting to get more of those advanced calculations in place, that's going to be where those developer notes live. We have two different levels of workflows here. One's going to be included with Podio Plus, one is with Podio Premium. Again, we're going to talk about more of the workflows within Podio Premium on that 201 webinar on April 10th. We'll make sure that you get that registration link if that is something that you're interested in. Adding to calendar, obviously a good option. And then for the data access, this is a question we get asked quite often. The ability to get something in from Excel, we very easily import and export with Excel. You can either export it out into a spreadsheet or be able to import it in. That way, any existing work you have that's saved in that platform, you're able to just pull into your template once you have your template set. And that's done by using field mapping. So you can define which fields of that spreadsheet need to pull into which areas of your template itself. Email to app. So if you did want to be able to just forward an email and have it create an item within your app, that's going to give you that unique email address for that app itself. So it allows you to just forward things in. Any integrations that you may be looking into, any sort of cleanup that you may want to do, those are all going to be located in that wrench right here. Similarly, for actions here, if we needed to share the individual app as opposed to the workspace, I can do that here. That's actually one of our newer features. It was a big request for a long time, so we were able to push that out just a few months ago. Archiving app is if it's something you definitely want the data, but it's not something you need to see on a regular basis, you can go ahead and archive that. Deleting it will delete the entire app and all data saved within that app. So we only want to use that when absolutely necessary. We are unable to recover that data for you if you are to delete it. And because of that, we actually make it where you have to type in delete this app to delete it. We want to make sure you know that it is not recoverable, but that's where you'd be able to accomplish that. And then cloning the app, again, a question we get often asked. This will allow you to basically take the template that you just created, and you can go ahead and make a clone or a copy of that into a different workspace or even into the same workspace. So you don't have to create that same template twice. You can then select where you want that new app to go. And where you see also clone with contents, we can go ahead, if you check that off, that means that any of the items saved in this app would also go over with that copy. If I have that unchecked, it just means that we're not going to do that. I just want the template itself. Okay, great. So with that, we can go ahead and create an item. Let's go ahead and add a project. Again, I have that nice blank version of my template here. So you can say Podio Webinar is going to be our project name. I can say it's project type A. Actually, maybe it's B. So I can change that. You see as it goes. Timeline, we can say it's from today until next week. Total hours, let's say 30. I'll go ahead and mark myself as that project owner. Again, for the phone number and for email, you can kind of decide if you wanted to give that designation. That is going to always be there as a default. So go ahead and plug in here. Total budget, say $1,500. And I can go ahead and I'm going to save that first. So when we save this item, you can see on the right-hand side, I'm always going to have this sort of, again, activity feed, very similar to that workspace activity feed. So if I'm going ahead and changing anything, it's going to show who made the change, what the change was, when it occurred, and it also gives you the ability to view the changes and revert back if it's a mistake. So that's always going to be here. This on the right-hand side is also great for any sort of notes that you might want to take that don't necessarily require a full field in the template. This is also great for collaboration where you can mention any of your colleagues, ask questions on a particular item, and then be able to get notified, whether it's just in Podio or on Podio or email. The individual user has the ability to change their notification settings, but then you can have that back and forth directly on the item itself, as opposed to going back and forth via email or a chat service and trying to make sure that you have everything in one place. With this, we are able to do it just directly on the item itself, not having to worry about notes getting lost in translation. Also on this right-hand side, you're able to, again, attach files or images, hyperlinks, or take any sort of a poll. And if I just wanted to see the back and forth conversations, I didn't need to see the activity, I can just go ahead and toggle to just the comments. So you can see that me changing the project type has been removed, but that comment is still there. Okay. Again, as I had mentioned with that progress bar, we can either manually move that or have that sort of designated to move based off of any sort of change I've made. The location, which is something I wanted to highlight here. So this is going to be actually our old office building. I can go ahead and plug that in. So you can see that takes me directly into that map view where I can click that. It's going to bring me into Google Maps, that address already plugged in, where I can send to my phone or get driving directions. Now you notice here we have that file attachment. So I can go ahead and say choose a file. Couple different options here. So you do have the ability to either pull directly from your computer, or we do integrate with all of these tools listed here. We are a part of ShareFile. We're all part of the same family. So obviously the integrations with ShareFile are going to be much stronger. However, with that being said, we do still offer integrations between things like Box, Google Drive, and Dropbox. The way that these integrations function is it's a live link between the two systems. So I'm never actually, pushing any, I'm never actually saving the file itself into Podio. I'm saving it on that system, which means that when I come in here, I'm always going to have the most up-to-date version of that file, and I'm not going to have to deal with the same file size limitation as I would if I was pulling directly from my computer. If you are pulling from your computer, each individual file has to be underneath 100 megs. That's a hard limit just by the system. You have an unlimited amount of documents that you can attach, but each individual document needs to be underneath that size. And then last but not least, for tasks. These are incredibly helpful for more of the smaller things that you need to manage. So not necessarily like a deliverable where you need statuses and ongoing work to be done. This would be more so of something that might be like, call this individual, send that email out, get that checklist done. So this, say, contact administrator. I can pick who it's being assigned to. I can select any sort of due date. I can even put a time on it, any sort of note. And then I can add labels for organization, attach files, have this be a repetitive task, or even have a remind me set to go. So we go ahead and create that task. This task list will show any tasks specific to this item. So it's only going to pull the ones that have been specifically associated with this particular project. The view is I'm always going to see when it's due, what the task is. I can click into that to get the full details, who it's assigned to, and whether or not it's been complete. So I'll go ahead and mark that one complete. You can see I get that nice strike through. If I only wanted this list to see just the things that have been, or that are, excuse me, just the things that are still pending, not the ones that are already been done, I can go ahead and just hide the completed task. If I want to go ahead and get the full list, I can go ahead and hit show. Okay. So that is creating your first app in your first app item. Again, you can have as many different apps as you want. These work really, really nicely. If I wanted to share just this item, I'm able to do that with what we call a guest user. So I can go ahead and click that. I can share only this project. I can basically plug in that specific email address, any notes, and I can even make that read only. So this tends to be very helpful if you want a client to just see their project, but not necessarily make any edits. Maybe they can make a comment, but that's the extent of it. That would be a good example of when it makes sense to go ahead and share that specific item. Okay, cool. Coming back to that workspace view, kind of just bringing you to more of the centralized home area. On the left-hand side at the top here, next to that workspace dropdown, you're going to have where you can check your connections. Again, more of an address book. Your calendar, which can be very powerful. It allows you to kind of pick and choose what's displaying from Podio. Any date-related items in Podio can highlight on that calendar. You can also check off to have tasks included on that calendar, so a great way to start your day. There are 2 integrations with calendars that we offer, one with Google Calendar and one with Outlook Calendar. Those are more of a two-way sync, so it's not necessarily going to tell you what's available on either of those calendars, but anything that's booked on those calendars will display on Podio. And you can have it set where anything from Podio can display on those calendars as well. And then that task list is going to be able to show you all of your tasks across any app, any workspace, just in one centralized location, where you can organize those by due date, by who assigned them to you, by what workspace they're in. So it allows you to kind of just make that space your own. That Podio logo in the middle of that bar there is going to take you to your individual home page. Very similar to this workspace homepage, you're able to create your own dashboard that way. So that way you can save any of your reports across multiple apps, multiple workspaces, just in that dashboard that you can access at any point in time. On the right-hand side over here, help and support. It allows you to get quick access to any of the general information that you may have questions on. Search, where you are able to search both in the item, in the app, in the workspace, and account wide. So it allows you to quick find anything that you might be looking for. This is going to be your account settings, where you're able to set up your profile. This is also if you're having any sort of document integration, you'd want to go into your account settings to make sure that's on there. If you have multiple emails and need to select your preferred, you need to add an additional email, you want to work on your email notifications, that's going to be where you're able to access that. And then depending on your billing platform, you should be able to go into billing to see any paid users you may have, adjust that total when your next bill may be due. There are some contracts that are outside of the system, just depending on who you worked with, or you'd want to work with your account manager. But for the most case, that's where you'd be able to access that information. The little bell is going to be your notifications. So anything that you're either getting mentioned on, anything that's changing in something that you're following, Uh, Sometimes this is the most wonderful thing in the world. Sometimes if someone's making a ton of edits, you might end up with a lot of notifications. However, it's incredibly, incredibly helpful. And you can kind of pick and choose if you don't want an app to be giving notifications as well. And then last but not least is that chat feature right here. So that's gonna be right next to those notifications. This is great. It's going to be specifically within Podio. So it's only for users within Podio. You can't necessarily use it outside of that, but it'll allow you to have those conversations where it's a little bit more almost like a G chat or a Slack message where you're able to kind of converse in a more of a singular aspect as opposed to speaking on the project in that comment area itself. Okay. So lots of options there. Again, I'm going to go ahead and quick just grab an app pack. I want you to be able to see the difference of what's coming through there. I'm going to quickly touch on how you'd be able to set up a web form or a report, and then we can go ahead and wrap for the day. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull in this app pack here. Just seeing quick out of the corner of my eye of where the data stored from Podio is, we can make sure that the AWS security white papers and the Podio white papers can be available for you. But in general, our servers are in Dublin and in Germany. Yep. Cool. So by installing that app pack, I can see I have the 3 different apps that have popped in here. I can go into, let's say, deliverables, for instance. With these app packs, some of them are going to give you almost like quote unquote dummy starter data, so you can get an idea of what it looks like pulled out. This is a great example of a deliverable where I have whatever sort of information I need. I can see the statuses, when it's due, the fact that it's overdue. The reason I wanted to open this up and get that downloaded is to show this related project option. So that's going to be those relationship fields I mentioned, where you can link things across different apps or different workspaces. So this is clearly sort of routing or related to that parent project. I can see the sort of key information here, and I can even click that and be brought back specifically to that parent project page. So it just allows for a lot more of an easy flow, really intuitive and smooth sort of work day of having multiple things linking together, but still almost living within their own space. Yep, so I'll go back to that deliverable. Other thing I wanted to quickly highlight was the different views that I had mentioned about what this can look like. So here I have that card view. So let's say this is in work in progress, but actually I haven't even started it yet. I'm able to kind of drag that back. Ooh, actually, no, I finished that. I can move that here, and you can see it's changing the status as I'm moving those different cards around. The other options that we wanted to check out, right there, switch layout. So I can move that to a badge here. So that's going to be your badge view, your table view, the new table view. So this is wonderful if we needed to, basically pin any item. Let's say I want to see that in the title, but I don't necessarily need to see the deadline right there. I'm going to go ahead and move that over, but I'm not changing the template. I'm basically just changing the view. So it allows you to kind of have a little bit more power on what those are displaying at as that quick view. Once you make any of these adjustments that you like, you can go ahead and save that view. So anytime you're on this left-hand side, you can go ahead and pull any of those saved views that you've made. Card view we had just touched on. Again, activity view is almost like that activity feed. Calendar view would be if there's any dates associated. And then the other very helpful thing here is the ability for filters. So you are able to filter off of any measurable or tangible field within your template. So whether it be any date field, any category field tends to be used heavily, any contact field, member field. So if I just want to see things assigned to a specific person, or I just want to see things that are assigned to certain type, I can go ahead and use those sort of filter options here to only show the things that I need to see. So for instance, let's say I just want to see the ones where the deadline status is overdue. So there you can see that change from 7 to 1. It's only showing me those overdue items so that now I know which one needs to get adjusted as quickly as possible. Other option here is the ability for reports. So you can go ahead and just create reports right here. On the basic and plus versions of Podio, you only really get the count style of reporting, still very helpful. If you do need to do anything with like calculations for reporting, so if I wanted to get like the total amount sold or total number of units as a report, that is a premium feature only. So that would be something you would need Podio Premium to obtain. And then if we're doing that count, I could say items per. So I'm looking at my deliverables per. I can do status, owner, deadline, related project. So in this case, I'll do a related project. So here I can see all of my deliverables and how many live in each project. I can then name this report. So let's say by project. Any unit. You can leave this blank. I often do, but if I wanted to say that this is, that many deliverables, I can add that in here. And then the save to, You have options. The app reports is going to basically just be a blank page where if I hit reports here, it would show me all the reports I've built for this particular app. Your homepage is that homepage I mentioned by clicking that icon in the top. The workspace homepage, I highly recommend using this if you're looking at a team sort of stat. Or the employee network homepage. The employee network is sort of a catch-all space. There's no actual work that's going on in there. There's no apps in that employee network. If a user is only a member of an employee network, they're not even counted towards your employee count. They would need to be a member of a workspace to go towards that count. But sometimes it's helpful if you just want to get a company overview of everything in one space. Again, I always recommend that workspace homepage. I can go ahead and save that report here. And now I can see that that report's now saved directly to that workspace. It's always going to be up to date, so I'm able to see everything that I need to see. Actually, that was the one I just created by project here. And now if I'm in this homepage and I want to see just the deliverables associated with that project, I can go ahead and click that, and it's bringing me specifically to those items. So that filter's already in place. It just allows for, again, a more seamless way to get to what you need to quickly. All right, last but not least is web forms. Super powerful, very, very helpful to have. By creating these, you just hit that little wrench again. When in doubt, all the fun things live in the wrench, but I can go down to web form here. And what this does, it's going to take that app template we've created and make it a blank form that can be filled out and submitted directly into our system without ever actually logging in. So this is wonderful if you need to embed that directly on your website, maybe to get a new client referral, a new ticket, a new job request or project request. Or we can give you a shareable link. It's always provided here on the right-hand side where you can hyperlink that into your email signature. Or maybe someone's requesting an appointment. It's a great way to look at this. Underneath that for configuration, this is where you can kind of pick and choose which fields from that app are displaying in the web form itself. So in this case, maybe I don't want the status to show. I don't want the deadline status to show or the related project, but I do want the budget and the description. So by unchecking those boxes, I can see that those have been removed from the web form, but there's still fields in the template. So once this is submitted, those will return. It will just be blank. Title and description, where you can name and give instructions for your web form. Again, if you are a little more on the advanced side and wanted to include any sort of coding to really custom brand this, that's something you're able to do here as well. Or if you prefer, we do have set themes that you're able to choose from. If you wanted to give it just a little bit of a different feel, kind of changes that out so it's a little bit more visually fun, if you will. Or you can just stick with the standard. You can add custom ones as well. Spam protection is that standard, the CAPTCHA. Full disclosure, it is the here's 9 pictures, select the one that has a bike, which for some reason I always get, and then there's never bikes in the pictures. So I'm quite possibly a robot, but it's a nice way if you want to make sure you're not getting spam submittals, you can go ahead and turn that on. Your button text is whatever that submit button is going to say. So thank you, enter and submit. You can customize that out however you choose. And after submission is just what you want the screen to display once that web form has been saved. So a little thank you note, if it's embedded in your website, you can direct it back to your site. There's lots of options on how you can make that work, but this allows for any sort of item that you'd want to come just directly into your system, but not necessarily have that user have to go into the system, or maybe they're not even a user. Using something like web forms allow you to get that streamlined access into the account without actually having that person having to be a member of Podio. Once you get that the way you like it, all you have to do is hit that save and share. With this, we give you, again, that link right here, any domain that you want to allow, and that embedded code. So that's now enabled. If I was to provide that code, you'd be able to fill that out, and then that would submit directly into this Podio account. All right, everyone. And so with that, I think it's a good time to wrap up sort of Podio 101, kind of going through the infrastructure, the basics of the platform. I saw a lot of questions coming in, which is great. I want to thank the panelists for being on top of those. If you have any other questions, absolutely feel free to reach out to us. We can either get those answered or get you into the hands of someone who would be best suited to speak with you. Also, there's a wonderful resources with, whether it's recorded webinars, recorded short videos, getting started tips that are available through our help page. I'll make sure that that's included in the email that's going out with a copy of this recording. So again, everyone, thank you very much for your time today. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Wednesday. And again, welcome to Podio.